In the hushed hall of a damp stone courthouse, a single droplet echoes from the vaulted ceiling, falling into a basin left to collect the leaking cold. Outside, snow clings to the wooden frames of the village's windows, muffling the world into a stillness that feels sacred yet stifling. Inside, the fire crackles low, but no warmth reaches the woman standing alone beneath the oak-beamed roof. Her hands are wrapped in linen, fingertips red from frostbite and labor, but they tremble not from cold, from memory. She has been summoned for speaking. Not for lies, not for treason, but for telling of what was done in the dark. Her voice, they say, disturbed the peace of men. In the eyes of the judges, parchment rustles louder than her pleas. She tried to name what cannot be named here, the bruises hidden beneath bodices, the shame wrapped tightly like a girdle around every girl who dared to weep. The steward's ring scrapes the wood as he pounds judgment, not for him, but for her. Her words have no place. They are poison, they say, whispered by devils into a woman's mouth. The scribe doesn't look up as he writes her sentence. Lashes, silence, a vow of penitence before the altar. Ink blots like spilled blood. She lowers her eyes, not from shame, but to shield a flicker of defiance that survives behind her lashes. Not last thought presses against her ribs, not fear, but the sound of her own voice, the way it once cracked open the silence like a bell at dusk. A gust of wind rattles the iron lattice of the courtroom's high window, letting in a stream of dust and light. It settles across the floor like a veil, half shrouding the young girl seated upon the low bench. Her shoes are muddy, laces undone. She had been taken in haste from the Abbey Gardens, where she tended herbs and hummed to herself, unaware the world had already chosen her fate. She is 15. Her hands still smell of rosemary and wet soil. She speaks when asked, clearly, with the soft lilt of the southern dialect, naming the monk who touched her beneath the chapel steps. But her words fall like petals into fire. The priest who hears her confession narrows his gaze. Her tongue, he declares, is forked, not pure, not clean. Temptress's tongue. Her hair, even braided, seems too wild for chastity. The men gather closer, as if her truth is a storm they must seal behind walls. She is told to take silence as her penance. She will scrub floors with vinegar, wear gray wool, speak only in prayers. The bells will ring to remind her of the tongue that brought shame upon the cloth. Her body, though untouched by justice, is marked by the whisper of guilt, a whisper that will follow her like shadow on snow. As she is led away, she glimpses the stained glass, the Virgin's face looking down with sorrow, a lamb at her feet. But no lamb ever bled for the truth like she just did. She wonders if heaven heard her voice before it was buried. The stone steps leading to the courtroom are slick with morning dew. A cart passes slowly, wooden wheels groaning under the weight of salt barrels, the air sharp with brine and smoke. Beneath a tattered cloak walks a widow, neither young nor old, her graying braid tucked beneath a plain coif. Her name has been spoken only in whispers, and now it is summoned aloud. She had spoken at her husband's burial, defying the village priest with her trembling voice. Not a eulogy, but an accusation. He had struck her, starved her, cursed her womb, and yet she was made to mourn him in silence. When she wept too freely, the priest called her blasphemous. When she refused to wear widow's black, they called her mad. Today she is called unnatural. For speech, for honesty, for not weeping in the right rhythm. The men in the court whisper as she walks. Possessed, someone mutters. Bitten by Eve, as they say. Her grief turned poisonous. That a woman who speaks against a dead husband is a woman beyond redemption. The magistrate fingers his rosary as he delivers judgment. Public repentance. Silence enforced by ritual. She must walk barefoot to the altar, carrying a scourge, while reciting prayers written by men who never bled in childbirth or feared a fist in the night. Her lips do not part as she's led away. But inside, her voice builds, not as noise, but as memory. The voice she will carry, not in words, but in how she raises her daughter's eyes to meet the world without apology. The scent of boiled barley and burnt tallow hangs in the narrow corridor behind the court, where a young servant girl waits, bound not by chains, but by expectation. Her apron is stained, her eyes downcast, and a single bruise purples the space behind her ear, half hidden by loose strands of hair. She has been told to wait until summoned, and not to speak unless asked. Inside, the Lord's steward recites charges not against her attacker, but against her. She cried out loud enough for the midwife to hear, loud enough to disturb the sacred stillness of the manor, loud enough to accuse. And in doing so, she has broken the unwritten rule. Women do not speak of what is done behind closed doors, not even when blood stains the rushes. She had only spoken the truth as clear as the nail marks in her palms, left when she fought. But truth, in these walls, is dangerous when it comes in a woman's voice. The verdict arrives like a slow knife. She is to be punished, not for falsehood, but for unrest, for naming what should remain nameless. Her punishment, public penance, and vow of chastity under the abbess's eye. It's not sanctuary, surveillance. Her voice, the steward declares, will now belong to God. As she walks through the archway of the abbey for the first time, the bells toll above. Not in celebration, not in mourning, but in warning. A woman's cry echoes longer than any sermon, and that the world cannot bear. She looks once behind her, but to remember the place where her voice was last her own.